Good evening. It's January 17th, 2023 at 6 p.m. and we would like to welcome you to the Torino Regional Park Master Planning Meeting. This is an opportunity for our residents to let us know what they would like to see amenity-wise for Parks and Recreation at the Torino Regional Park site. I am Kelly Boatwright, Parks Administrator Projects with Parks and Recreation Department here in Port St. Lucie. With me tonight, I have Jonathan Haig and Nick Kuhn with Kimley Horn. They are consultants on this project. They will be listening to your feedback. They are going to go over the project site and some of the amenities that we might be offered on the site. And they're going to have a good presentation for you all tonight. We have a housekeeping slide. I'm not sure where our presentation is. It going to come up, Avi? There we go. Thanks. There we go. All right. So, again, I'm Kelly Boatwright, Parks Administrator Projects. Our project team for the City of Port St. Lucie is Mike Kendrick. He is our Deputy Director with Parks and Recreation. Brad King, Assistant Director for Parks and Recreation. Dan Mushwick, he's a Project Manager for our Parks and Recreation Department. And Andrina Nobley, Project Coordinator for Parks and Recreation. Again, we have Jonathan Haig, Kristen Alexa, and Nick Kuhn with Kimley Horn. So tonight, your microphones will be muted. You can utilize the Q&A feature throughout the entirety of the presentation. If a question comes up that you would like to ask, feel free to type that into the Q&A box, and then at the end of the presentation, we will answer your questions. We will also be doing some polling throughout the presentation, and we would like to hear what you would like to see and do in our lovely parks. And then also at the end of this presentation, there will be a recording and a survey that will be provided on the website. So if you go to www.cityofpsl.com/Torino Regional Park, you will find that recording and survey probably later this week or early next week. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our consultants, and we'll actually start off with our first polling question. Do you want me to read that one?
Yeah.
Okay. So what we'd like to know tonight is if you are situated at your residence within the area code of, I think it's the 34984. Is that our 86? I'm sorry, 34986. So this is just to kind of get you warmed up on the polling feature. It's a simple yes or no. So if you would, whenever that poll comes up, let us know if you are a resident of that area or which feature or which option applies to you.
So this will serve as sort of a test question, so you get familiar with how the other poll questions will be conducted here. You have the question on here, and then you can select from one of the four options here listed on the poll questions.
Okay, we're going to give you about 5 more seconds to answer that question. And we're going to close out that polling question. And it looks like we've got about 60% of our attendees tonight that reside in the 34986 area code. And everyone else, with the exception of about 7%, is a resident of the City of Port St. Oh, I'm sorry. No, we've got 13% is a resident of the City of Port St. Lucie. 20% is not a resident of Port St. Lucie, but in St. Lucie County. And then we have 7% that is not a resident of St. Lucie County.
All right, so that's a good start for the poll questions. We'll have 3 more poll questions throughout the presentation, and they'll be similar to that style. They'll build in a little bit of complexity, but we'll have the poll question responses for you to review and select from, and then we'll review the responses afterwards and show that on the screen. So let's go ahead and dive into the presentation here. We have 4 main sections that we'll be going through this evening. First is we're going to briefly touch on the history of the project. Then we'll talk about the master planning process and schedule. Then we'll have Jonathan talk about the initial site evaluation findings. And lastly, we'll hit on the next steps. So we'll have a couple opportunities here, and then we'll follow up with Q&A after those sections. So let's talk a little bit about the history of the project. This project, as we're talking about here, begins first with acquainting ourselves with what we are discussing tonight. Torino Regional park. And what you'll see here are three main parcels or areas of the site. We have them labeled as parcels A, which is the largest at over 130 acres. Parcel B, located on the western side, and that is just under 15 acres in size. And then the most recent parcel added to the regional park is labeled as parcel C, and you'll see that in the bottom right area of the graphic. And that adds approximately 46 additional acres to the site. And that was the former police training site. Now, within this site, we also have on parcel A a current lease for the RCA Club. And you'll see a little bit of the runway shown here on the aerial just below where it says 131.58 acres. And you'll also see in this site, primarily in parcels A and near parcel B, are several existing utility infrastructure elements within the site, and we'll highlight those in some of the additional mapping. So equating ourselves with what we're talking about tonight, added together, this creates a 192-acre opportunity for additional parkland in the northern area of the city. Now, the history of the site goes back quite a bit, and I'll show a brief timeline here on the next slide, but we wanted to talk a little bit about one of the historical elements of this project, and that goes back to a previous approved master plan shown here on the graphic on the slide, and this was completed in 2006. And what you'll see in the top right corner is a yellow dashed line that outlines what was phase one at the time, and that was designed and permitted in 2008. Now, unfortunately, the Great Recession soon set in, and that delayed the project overall. But this goes back well over 15 years as planned, and what you can see here in the graphic is quite an active park with areas of passive uses as well, but primarily an active park element. On the next slide outlines the overall project timeline. And what you'll see is the history of the site goes back to 2002, leading up to the Great Recession. So a lot of master planning was completed during that time. And as we go through, you'll see different colors here of the timeline. The purple indicate after the Great Recession, some tasks that were completed that added citywide information that will be, as has been used as part of this master plan. So in 2016, the city completed a leisure needs assessment, as well as then kicking off in 2018, a citywide 10-year master plan for Parks and Recreation, and that was completed in 2019. The red dot shows where we currently are along the timeline, and the green indicates where we stand within the master planning process right now. And those begin with our regional master plan, our regional park master plan started in late 2022. And that will be targeted for completion in July of 2023. Following that will be phase one design, tentatively scheduled for fall of 2023 to fall of 2024, and construction starting in 2025. Now, as part of that, I wanted to pause here for a moment and launch our second poll question. So with this, our second poll question asks, do you support the Torino Regional Park being more active recreation, such as programmed activities, or more passive or at-will recreation types? And the choices here available are active, such as soccer, tennis, baseball as examples, passive, which includes hiking or playing on a playground, or a balance between passive and active, or you can indicate, I don't know. Those are the four options. We'll give you a moment to review those and make your selection.
Okay, we're going to give you about 5 more seconds to make your selection. And with that, we're going to close that polling question. And so we have about 13% that would like active recreation, 44% preferring passive recreation, 44% requesting a balance of passive and active. And seems like everyone had a choice on that. We had 0% for the I don't know. So everyone knows kind of what they're looking for.
Excellent. Continuing on, we wanted to highlight some of the items from the citywide Parks and Recreation Master Plan, as well as providing some of the starter information that we've looked at in terms of the site. And what we have here is, again, an opportunity to identify what can happen with this over 190 acres of parkland. And so we're drawing upon input that the community has already provided as a starting point here. And this is, again, information from the 10-year Parks and Recreation Systems Master Plan. And what you'll see on the screen are responses to two questions. And the first one, indicated by question 18, is an estimated number of households who's indicated a need for a facility that is either being met less than 50% or not at all. And what we'll see at the top of the list here are walking and hiking trails, paved bike trails, natural areas and natural parks, outdoor stage or amphitheater, and fitness center or spa. Those are the top 5, but primarily passive uses as the overall needs there. And you'll see numbers next to those bar charts, and that indicates the number of households within the city of Port St. Lucie that have a need that is not being met currently, or is being met only 50% or less. We also, on the chart on the on the right, question 15, indicates the number of households whose needs for programs are being met 50% or less. And again, what you'll see here is adult fitness and wellness, nature programming, summer concerts, special events, and adult sports programs round out the top 5. But you'll see a clear clustering here in the top 3. And again, it spans a number of items, program types, again, highlighting some natural and summer concert elements, as well as adult fitness and wellness, and the number of households that indicated needs for that. And what we'd like to do as part of this is also highlight on the screen a summary of how the master plan identified locations for potential future facilities. And what we've highlighted on the map here with the yellow circle is where Torino Regional Park is. And you'll see a clustering of symbols there indicating a number of facilities that are proposed for this site from the master plan. And this includes a proposed community park, as well as a proposed community center, a proposed athletic fields, and proposed regional park sports complex. So you'll indicate those with the 4 symbols located on the map, and you'll see it is within the master plan indicated as a primary destination for the northern area of the city. In addition, one of the other previous plans for the water park feasibility study also indicated Torino Regional Park as a preferred location. This was identified out of over 15 different sites, with Torino ultimately being identified as the preferred site. So we've assembled this information as a starting point, but we would like to pause here again and ask our next question, our poll question 3. And what we'd like to do is ask you all, do you feel that the survey results from the city's Parks and Recreation Master Plan represents your household's needs and desires for recreation? And so we have an option of yes or no. And so we wanted to ask this question, as we know the master plan was completed in 2019, and a lot has happened, and we've grown as a community, so we wanted to check in with that option. We'll give 5 more seconds here.
And with that, we'll close out the polling question number 3. And 60% say yes, the 10-year master plan represents their household needs and desires for recreation, and 40% say no.
Excellent. So we'd like to proceed into the next section here in regards to the overall master plan process and schedule. We've started this master plan again in late 2022. And we have 4 easy steps here that we've organized this master plan process with a targeted completion of July of this summer. What we've been doing in late 2022 is diving into the data collection and site evaluations, and you'll see underneath each of these numbers a list of tasks that we've been working on throughout this. So we've identified environmental elements of the site, we've started site surveys, as well as identifying some opportunities and constraints, and we'll dive into some of those initial findings here in this presentation. Step 2 is the public engagement phase, and this is really kicking off here tonight. We've also conducted a few stakeholder interviews with elected officials previously, and we'll continue the public engagement throughout the rest of the project. The next step, step 3, is ultimately concept development. And so we are not here tonight to present any concepts per se, we're here to gather information from you all. And so once we have this information, we'll start to outline some concepts and recommend potential phasing for the development of the site, as well as a summary of the benefits and constraints. And we'll conclude that step with an additional public workshop to review this information. The last step, step 4, is the master plan phase. And that's where we'll consolidate all the information into a draft master plan, develop a document, and present those in the public as well as to City Council. So let's look at the time frame overall for these 4 steps. And you'll see these with the various colors, again, starting in October of 2022 with the data collection. The yellow dot indicates where we are here tonight. Starting off, really the public engagement initial phase, we've done some prior prep work for that starting into late last year as well. You'll see concept development starting in mid-February and going until late June, and then overlapping with the development of the master plan in June and July. And you'll see some additional targeted dates for those future public workshops, including the Citizen Summit on February 18th, targeted public workshop during the concept development on early May, and then a final public presentation in mid-July. Outlining a few additional participation opportunities, we will have later this week an in-person workshop. This will be at Westgate K-8 School Cafeteria. No registration is required, but we do like to emphasize that for those participating tonight, there is not a need to attend the additional workshop later this week. It'll be the same content through that workshop. We just wanted to make sure that we provide both a virtual and in-person opportunity. So if you know of others that might not have been able to participate here tonight, encourage them to come on out Thursday for the in-person workshop. We'll also be launching an online survey. As noted at the beginning of the presentation, you can scan, and that will take you, the QR code on the right of the screen, that will take you to the project website landing page, and you can find additional information regarding upcoming participation opportunities, as well as the online survey and a recording of tonight's presentation here in the near future. Additionally, we'll have other public events identified here tentatively again for May and July for later phases of the project. I'll hand it over to Jonathan here to talk about some of the initial site evaluation findings.
And real quickly, before Jonathan begins his portion, I would just like to emphasize again that if you have any questions that you would like to ask throughout the presentation, please be sure to type those into our Q&A feature, and we will answer them at the end of the presentation.
Thanks, Kelly. So I wanted to review our initial site evaluation findings. Our environmental team visited the project site and did some evaluations of some various elements, including the soils. In this graphic, you'll see some groupings of soils that were identified on site that provide a variety of different characteristics. Some of them are related to the wetlands, and the poorer soils are represented by the darker colors. So you can see where some of those overlap with very wet areas. It's very mucky, very difficult to develop in those spaces. Also identified were some of the critical habitats on the project. And you can see where some of those darker soil colors corresponded with the marshes and the and the wet areas as well. So you can see that pine flatwood habitat is 48% of the site. Most of that's in parcel C. Parcel B is entirely in upland hardwood forest habitat. There's a semi-developed portion of the project, which is the remote-controlled, the RCA club, and that is the kind of the 18 acres on the lower, kind of the southeast corner of parcel A. But most of the critical habitats are tied to the marshes and the wet prairies and those hydric pine flatwoods that are identified on that plan. And most of those, or all of those, are in. Most of them are in parcel A with a small area in parcel B. Wetlands were identified on the project site as well. These will be of varying difficulty to permit should we choose to try and develop in some of these spaces, which is unlikely. So 32 acres of the delineated wetlands are on this property out of the grand total. The existing canal is also there and includes the 5 acres of aquatic vegetation. And then we will potentially be needing to cross that canal at some place with possibly pedestrian and or vehicular access to connect the two sides of the park across the canal. We also looked at potential circulation and existing circulation within the site. Some of these diagrams that are shown on here diagram some of the existing unpaved trails that are on the property already. There are some existing vehicular routes that are going to the pump stations that are already on the property. There's also a vehicular route leading into the remote-controlled club access area. Some of and those are identified with the yellow stars on this diagram. The purple stars identify pretty early on where we think there are potential site access points, and those generally correspond with intersecting roads. Anything else I'm missing on this slide, Nick? No?
Nope.
Okay. Lastly, did we miss? Oh, this is the poll question number 4 slide. Okay, so this slide here shows the kind of the challenges and opportunities diagram. This overlays a lot of the information that I've shown on the previous slides. So you can see where we've got the potential and existing access points diagrammed on here, some of the existing vehicular routes. Also overlaid on this plan are some of the better areas to develop, and those are identified with the green dashed outline. Those will be areas that are more conducive to development than other areas of the property. So you can see that paring this large site down to through all this analysis and environmental research, we've identified that there really is kind of a limited space to do what we need to do to create a design on this park, especially on the active side of things. Do we want to go to poll question number 4?
Yeah, let's launch poll question 4. So poll question 4 asks, which opportunity do you feel is most important? And we have 8 options here listed, and you can select which one you have. You have a single choice option here. So the first one is develop a community serving park with a balance of amenities. Number 2 is provide additional athletic fields, baseball, softball, soccer, etc. Number 3 is provide unique adventure recreation. This could be skate park, rock climbing, etc. The number 4 is preserve natural areas, and this could include educational opportunities. And then for number 5, we have provide spaces to socialize or picnic. Number 7 here, or I'm sorry, number 6 is develop a community center with indoor flexible space. And the last option is develop an aquatics facility. So this may be hard to narrow down to just one option, but we ask you to identify what is most important for you or your household. So we'll give that time here to make your selection.
And while you're making that selection, let me also mention that the polling questions here tonight are to keep it interactive and hopefully interesting for you all that are in attendance. But we will be providing an online survey along with the recording early next week that will give you the opportunity to give more in-depth answers to a multitude of questions. So, and we will also endeavor to have a space where you could have an open-ended answer as well. So if there are things that you're not seeing, even on that survey, that you would like to see, you will have an opportunity to provide that information to us at that time. And we'll give you about 5 seconds to finish making your selection. And with that, we'll close out question number 4. All right, so we have 19% requesting that we develop a community serving park with a balance of activities. I can't see all the questions or all the answers, I apologize. But the 6% would like additional athletic fields. No one really wants a unique adventure recreation from this group. We have 63% that want to preserve natural areas. 0% for provide spaces to socialize and picnicking. And I would say that this is probably because we had to pick our favorite one because, socializing and picnicking in a park, that sounds like anybody would maybe want that. But anyway, that's just my opinion. And then we have 6% that's develop a community center with indoor flexible space, and 6% for develop an aquatics facility. So thank you for participating in question number 4.
Yeah, that's our last poll question. However, I wanted to just highlight a couple items here in terms of the responses across all of the poll questions. The participants tonight really reflect a lot of great input, primarily from close proximity to the site. And so we value you guys' participation and input tonight as being very informative and familiar with the site itself. We've indicated here tonight as well that there's a general support to having sort of a balanced approach or more passive view for the park's amenities. But as you saw with the last question as well, as we asked you all to identify the number one or most important aspect is that several of those actions can ultimately be complementary to one another. And given the size of the overall site as well, there may be a lot to be able to accomplish within this overall site. Now let's go ahead and talk about next steps here for this. And so we wanted to again highlight completing our initial public engagement, and this will include additional stakeholder interviews, focus groups, as well as Thursday evening's in-person workshop, and then also the online survey. So again, we ask you all to check back on the project website as that the online survey is launched, as well as the recording for tonight. And if you know others that would like to participate in this process, please encourage them to attend the in-person workshop. And again, we'll highlight that the in-person workshop this Thursday will have the same information presented and same opportunities for input. Following that initial public engagement, we'll also be launching into developing the site program definition. And what I mean by that is ultimately developing recommendations on the types and numbers of amenities. And this is based upon the public input on those engagement opportunities listed above, as well as some of the prior citywide Parks and Recreation System Master Plan recommendations, as well as the site evaluations and surveys. So we'll combine that information to define what some of the program program elements are recommended for the site. And this is targeted for completion by late February. Again, we want to highlight the upcoming opportunities. Again, if you'd like to, you can scan the screen with the QR code on the right, and that will take you to the project website. And again, to highlight the information for this Thursday's in-person workshop from 6 to 8 p.m. at Westgate K-8 School in the cafeteria. Again, no registration is required for that. And Then the last part is we will have at that in-person workshop, again, the questions that we went over this evening, we will have stations that identify those questions. So again, we will look forward to gathering that input for the in-person sessions.
With that,
With that, we would like to pause and open up for some Q&A opportunities. And we have on the screen again just an overall area of the site, and you can see highlighted in the color portions of the areas the three various parcels.
We have a request, and I'm not sure that this was one of the slides shown. Is there one that shows the sidewalk master plan? In the slides, they're asking if we could flash that back up on the screen.
Yeah, we have.
And I was saying, while they're pulling that back up for the individual that asked that question, I would also say that you can go and look at that anytime on the city's website. If you go on www.cityofpsl.com and type in the search bar sidewalk master plan, it should come right up for you.
Yeah. So on the circulation slide, we have identified again some of those opportunities for access points shown with the symbols, but you'll see some gray dashed lines around the site too, and that's part of the future sidewalk master plan here. And in addition, you'll see at East Torino and North Torino a purple dash circle, and that indicates the future roundabout project as well. But existing sidewalks are shown along East Torino in the solid gray line, and then the future proposed sidewalks are shown with the dashed gray.
Okay, so we do have a few questions. The first one we have, did Torino Park townhouses change their property with another one of the cities? So to answer that question, the Torino Park townhouses, that is under private ownership. The city has had some conversations with the owner, but nothing has been decided on that particular parcel of land to date. Okay. The next one is more of a statement, but it's saying, you have a sports complex at Winter Lakes Park. I don't think, and Brad may want to speak more to this, but the Winter Lakes Park isn't really necessarily considered a sports complex. It's a large neighborhood park. There are no lighted facilities, and there are no recognized users that occupy the site or run any of their activities out of that site. So this would be, what we're doing tonight or talking about tonight has been long envisioned by our city council and residents as a regional park site. So this will be one of only two in the city. We have a multitude of community parks. I believe we have 8 community parks in the city that do have lighted ball fields and lighted facilities. We have probably 30 plus more of what we consider neighborhood parks, and those would be facilities that do not have lighted facilities. And then Torino Regional Park, it's kind of implied in the name that, it would have a little more of a regional draw. So it would be more than your average neighborhood or community park. It's going to be a little larger in scope and size and amenities, most likely. And then we had a couple of questions about the survey being online. It seems that a few of you tried to go ahead and scan that QR code, and I will say it is not live yet. We generally put that up with the recorded meeting from tonight, so that way other residents that maybe didn't have an opportunity to attend virtually or at the in-person meeting will have some context for answering the survey. So that will go live with the recording most likely early next week. All right. And then we have a question from some of our RC hobby group community. He gave some context that he's lived in the area for a long time and enjoys the RC hobby group portion of the park, and he's asking whether or not the city plans to keep the existing leaseholder of the RC park at its current location. They are a passionate group about the hobby and would like the city to consider keeping the RC park. So Brad, again, may want to answer this in a little more detail, but we haven't made any decisions, I don't believe, about the RC park as it stands right now. Yep.
That's
Brad?
correct, Kelly. Again, for the record, Brad Keene, Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation. The question about whether or not the RC Club stays at their current site, nothing has been decided yet. Again, we're still very early in the development of a conceptual master plan for all of the Torino properties. There is a possibility they could stay. There's also a possibility, depending on what the eventual research and data collection would lead us toward what path we take in terms of programming or planning more active use amenities on the site. The possibility does exist that they could be relocated. So to specifically answer the question directly, there has not been a decision made one way or the other. The lease that the city has with the club is valid. And, as far as, keep in mind what was said earlier, all the acreage is well over 100 acres, 130 plus acres. It very well may be that phase one development of a portion of that park site does not involve the area where the current RC Hobby Group leases. It may be years before that property, if it's decided that it is something more than what the RC Club occupies, it could be years down the road before that's developed. So generally speaking, the decision has not yet been made, but even if the master plan shows something different, it could be many years down the road before the club would have to relocate.
Thanks, Brad. So, moving on to some of the other questions. I was asked, is every home in Torino being provided a survey or the website for it? So yes, anyone can access the website and access the survey. And again, that recording, if they weren't able to attend virtually or in person to our programming meetings here tonight or on Thursday night. And we welcome that input from our residents. We will also ask in that survey, what part of the city are you from? So we will have an idea of, who is situated in that Torino Park area as opposed to other areas of the city. All right. What's the city's proposed budget for this park? So this is the regional park that the city decided about 2 years ago now to do we have a $10 million bond. We also have some ARPA funds that are available, and then we also have some phased out year incoming within our CIP for additional funds. So over the phasing of, I believe it's about 3 to 4 years, we have between $25 and $30 million actually for the phase one of this park. So it could be a very substantial and amenity-rich site. Again, it could be with passive or active recreational amenities, depending on what our residents decide they would like to see on the site. When everything gets approved, what would be the finish day of this project? So currently, we are in the planning process with our consultants here, Kinley Horn, and I believe that the planning goes through, July of this year. And once that is done, we will have a funding and phasing recommendation that we will bring to City Council that will give us a better idea of what amenities will come in a phase one, and then what amenities may need to wait for future phases, and what the timeline will be to bring those online. Okay. On the community needs assessment slide, you mentioned the need for outdoor event space. However, that was not listed as an option for us to choose as our most important element for this park. Is that a potential option for this park? Absolutely. So again, what we will do is we will we're actually in the process of formulating an in-depth survey that will be posted online with the recording of this meeting, and we will have a much more broad array of options to choose from, and outdoor event space can definitely be one of those options.
Yeah, I'll say the poll questions are a little bit limited in the number of responses that we can provide through this format, but the online survey will have many more options, including write-in. So even if we don't have that listed in there, you can always provide some of those unique ideas in there. And you can certainly, I would encourage you all to bookmark the project website so you can come back on a regular basis, because in addition to the online survey and the recording of tonight's presentation, we'll continue to populate the website with additional information as we progress in the project. So it'll be a great way to stay up to speed on the project progression.
Can you go back to the graphic of the concept from 2007, 2008 timeframe? Yep. Thank you. So going back to the slide where it shows the original concept, this concept was shovel ready back in, I believe, 2008. Am I right, Brad? Yes. And it was permitted and ready to go. This was a lighted baseball, softball complex. So it has long been intended that this would be a lighted regional park facility. Due to the economic climate at the time, the city very wisely decided that it was not the ideal time to bring this park online, but has brought this into the conversation many times since, and particularly with the 10-year master planning process. It was deemed that this area of the city was in dire need of recreational amenities and activities. So again, City Council approved the 10-year master plan in 2019 and has continued to move forward with the main pillars of that 10-year master plan, one of them being the Torino Regional Park site. We do have a question about whether the paths or roads have pervious surfaces. So it's really going to be, I would believe, and I'm going to actually let you guys kind of take this, but I think it's going to depend on what the requirements would be and what the wants would be, if I'm not mistaken. I mean,
Right. For a trail system, I think there's two different types that we could look at for this project, and one is a paved trail that offers a lot of openings for different users and people with different mobility ranges. So you could use a paved surface would be something where someone could ride a bike on, or rollerblade, or ride a skateboard on, or a scooter, or push a stroller more easily. People in a wheelchair could get around a little bit better, as well as people with walkers and other mobility issues. A non-paved trail offers a little more rustic environment. It's a little less impactful, so those might be lend themselves more to like a nature walkway or a nature trail.
sorry, just answering a quick question.
No problem.
Okay. Where is the other regional park? Good question. That's actually over in the Tradition area. We are planning and developing that with our developing partners, Mattamy Homes. And we hope to begin construction on that actually later this year. So that will probably come out of the ground a little more quickly than Torino Regional Park because it's been planned for some time. But very exciting times for the Parks and Recreation systems in Port St. Lucie. Security, I have a question. Security question mark. So we always try to plan and design our parks with security in mind, but also we do have a wonderful parks officer group that goes around and keeps an eye on all of our parks for us and are ready and available to serve if we need them. So yeah, that security is a big part of what we look to make sure we have a good handle on in all of our parks. Oh, yes, and I'm sorry, we also try to camera as many in all of our parks as possible. And I would say every year we program in additional funding into our CIP so that we can make sure that we are cameraing any park that is in need that hasn't already been adequately vetted for that security amenity. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm kind of trying to answer and click on buttons at the same time, so just bear with me. I apologize. All right. How many families are attending this meeting? Well, that's a good question, and we have about, looks like 20 plus attendees, and I'm hopeful that the families are all sitting by, close by, and providing all of their input at the same time as maybe mom and dad or some of the other family members. So, and we would love to, again, as I believe Nick mentioned earlier, if you know of someone who was not able to attend tonight's virtual meeting, please feel free to come to the Westgate K through 8. I think it's called, we call it a cafeteria, but it's called an auditoria. Is that what they call it? Okay, an auditoria. Look for the signage. We're going to have some signage up. But again, to Nick's point, if you attend tonight, it is going to be the same presentation and the same content. So there's no need to attend both unless you just, want to come see us. Yeah, so if you know of anybody that wasn't able to attend, please, put them in that direction. But again, if neither one of them worked out for their schedule, we will have this recording online early next week with a survey available. Okay. Oh. What are ARPA funds? So we do have some ARPA funds that we have scheduled for this particular project, and these are funds that the federal government pushed down to the cities in order to what's the word I'm looking for, Brad? It's American Recovery Fund. So it was during COVID times, and they knew that there were some gaps that cities needed to fill, and we are actually going to be able to utilize, I believe, about $5 million of ARPA funds for this particular project. So we're really excited about that. There are some specifications to the ARPA funds. I believe we have to use those funds for infrastructure, which there will be plenty of need for that. So we've been able to utilize those throughout the city, but particularly, on some of our bigger park projects as well. I'm not sure. So, Mr. Carry-On, I'm not exactly sure what the question was here. I think it's about partnering with the city for an academy. If I could get a little clarification in the Q&A, I will try to get that answered for you. And then, will pickleball courts be included in this park? Well, that's a really good question, and we would love to have your suggestions for any amenities that you would like to see, pickleball included. So if that ends up being a much desired amenity by our residents, then we will look to see where we might be able to fit that and some of the other things that the residents want into the site. Did I not answer? Okay. Is BMX and mountain biking together with skateboarding for the park? So currently, city council direction has been that we look to our Tradition Regional Park to implement a potential BMX element, and at the Torino Regional Park for a potential skate park element. So they are looking to do this. As many of you may or may not know, there was an adventure park planned for the city for some time. It was slated to be constructed at the Cameo Crosstown site that is currently being utilized as a waste transfer site. We can no longer use that site anymore, so rather than not bring any of those amenities to the city at all, the city council has requested that we try to include those and incorporate those into our regional park site. So we are looking at the potential to do that. Okay. And that may be most of the questions. I'm trying to, 4 questions. And please know that if you've more or less made a statement within the quick Q&A, I have noted it. It's not, since it wasn't really a question, I didn't necessarily read it out loud, but I appreciate any of your comments, and we are noting them for the planning process. So much appreciated. I don't really see any open questions right now. And I'll reiterate again, if you are looking to fill out the survey, please look at our website, www.cityofpsl.com/Torino Regional Park. Or if you scan that QR code within the recording once it's posted, you'll be taken to that main page as well, where you'll see the recording and the survey. And we really do welcome any and all feedback that our residents would love to provide to us, so that we can create the best plan for for one of our parks here in the city. So, is there anything? I kind of just ran with all the questions, guys. Is there anything that you would like to add to anything I've said?
I think you covered everything right now. Yeah.
Okay, well, gonna just do a little sweep here real quickly and make sure that, oh, we have a couple more that just came in. Got some that want, to keep the wildlife, and we are cognizant of the wildlife and the wetlands in the area. So just please know that we are taking all things into consideration as we move forward with our planning process. And Brad, I think, has some comments he would like to make.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. I'd just like to remind not only our park staff and our consultants, but the listening public as well. This, of course, this entire project will be fully permitted by the regulatory agencies. That includes the DEP, Army Corps of Engineers, South Florida Water Management District. So if there are environmental concerns and issues out there, number one, they're going to be identified. Number two, they're going to be addressed through permit. That may be that we have to stay out of certain areas that are viewed as wetlands. That may be that we have to take protective measures against wildlife. So all of these things will be fully vetted and explored so that we do everything in sequence and the right way. So we very much want to preserve and protect as much as possible the native wildlife that might be on site, and in some cases we may have to trap and remove certain species that may be in the area of development. So I just want to assure the public that this project will be fully permitted by the regulatory agencies.
Thank you, Brad. Okay, and again, I'm going through and I'm noting each of your comments. Otherwise, if like I say, if it wasn't a question, we are noting the comments, and I'll give it just a few more seconds to see if we have any other questions kind of roll in. But we do appreciate everyone's attendance tonight. Thank you so much. And again, that website's going to be www.cityofpsl.com/Torino Regional Park. Look for the recorded meeting from tonight and the survey early next week. We look forward to all of your feedback. Again, your comments here tonight were noted, but if you'll fill those in and anything that you're not seeing, within the options of the survey, we will provide some blank area for you to just fill in anything unique to that you would like to see come to the site. Again, if you know of anyone that wasn't able to attend virtually tonight and they want to see us in person on Thursday, we'll be at Westgate K through 8, beginning at 6 o'clock as well. I think that's going to be it. I don't see any other questions rolling in. I do have a question about, are we planning to use trap and remove for gopher tortoises? There's state and federal regulation for the removal of gopher tortoises within, any construction site. So we would definitely have to abide by all of those rules and regulations. Yes, we will do that to the degree that we are required, for sure. And any other questions? Okay, well, we've really appreciate everyone's attendance tonight. Thank you so much. We've got a lot of good feedback within the comments, and we look forward to seeing everyone fill out that survey and getting some additional information from you all in the future. So we will bring this back. I think they mentioned within the presentation, once we have a concept ready and available after this public engagement, we will bring that back to City Council. So stay tuned.
Thank you.
All right. Everyone have a wonderful evening. If you have any other questions or comments, feel free to reach out. I don't know that my information was posted, but you can look us up on the website and email us. Let us know if you have any additional comments.
Upcoming meetings, yeah.
What's that?
Just as we close out, for those that would like to just again note the information for the in-person.
Oh, perfect. Thank you
We'll
so
kind of
much.
leave this up for just a moment. You can, again, write down any info you need, or again, scan the QR code and that'll take you to the project website.
Okay. And seeing no additional questions or comments, we appreciate you coming tonight, and we hope to see you all at future engagement meetings. Thank you so much.